we can have a very casual talk till the time people come in and we officially start. So if you have any kind of questions that we can get started off, it'd be anything at all. I mean, I'm leaving it open. Or maybe we can put it this way, you saw my agenda, it's only 2 or 3 lines, right? It is around operational guidance for Azure IaaS. If any one of you can voice out what is it that you expected from the session, then I can probably guide the session accordingly. Yeah. Yeah. Sure.
Please provide us the subscription, how we are taking the subscription of Azure actually. What is the account, what is subscription, what are the other things? So how exactly we are?
Okay. Yeah, I'll be doing that. I will touch upon the subscription management if you...
Yeah, subscription management is very important.
That's right.
And from one subscription to another subscription,
right.
Can I move any VM or something like that?
Sure.
Application can be moved or not?
Sure. I'll touch upon that. I'll be touching upon that. Yes, ma'am.
The same thing first about the subscription.
Okay.
The second thing I was used to know is the best practices solutions, or we can plan it out. Any of the DR environment.
DR. Okay. Anything particular in mind when you say DR? General DR of applications or? Okay, got it.
Be particular about the virtual machines.
Okay. So let me just start taking notes so that. So one you mentioned about subscription. Yeah. One of you, yeah.
Here actually our infrastructure is on SAN. And we want to move to cloud testing.
Okay.
So what is the journey? And second thing is the security aspect, like understanding.
Wow. So security in its own is a topic or a session on its own. While I'll try and touch upon some of those aspects. SAN to cloud movement, anything in particular that you're looking at when you say you have your data on SAN, and you're looking at moving it to the cloud. From an operational standpoint, yes, I will touch upon it. From a security, I'll in general talk about security, not specific to data movement, or in general Azure operational security is what I can touch upon. Sure, I'll touch upon it. Yeah.
Cloud services. I wanted to specify a cloud services when we are creating a machine.
Okay.
And when we are using a cloud services as a PaaS.
Okay.
What are the difference between these two?
Okay. So when you're creating a cloud service and?
When we are creating a new VM, so it asks by default
That's
you
right.
have to add one, you have to select one
Right.
default cloud services,
Sure.
or new cloud services to create and add it into that.
Right.
So that one and the cloud services in which you have a work web
role and work role. The difference between these two?
So that difference between these two I am not clearly understood.
Sure. Yes, sorry, you had.
Yeah. So in addition to all these points, so if you can provide or cost benefits also, like that is all the devices infrastructure to cloud, right?
Okay.
So maybe some kind of cost comparison.
Cost comparison. Okay.
How much it would be?
Sure. So while we are deviating a bit from the initial topic that I had, this is more moving towards general Azure discussion, which I'm fine as long as all of you are fine. That's right. So the topic was around operational. So I will start with the topics that relate to operational Azure operational guidance, and then I will get into some of those cost discussions. Please bear with me for that. Right? Yeah.
Just one more addition to what question you asked.
Right.
Migrating from SAN to how we optimally utilize both these infrastructures. Once say we move data and all other things, and what we'll do with the SAN, existing
Okay.
SAN.
Okay. So you're saying in a hybrid kind of environment where keeping on-prem and on the cloud. Yeah. So I'm again afraid a lot of these are not related to the operational guidance. So I will start with operational guidance, and depending upon how much of interest is it in there, I will touch upon. I'll try and build some of these into the session, but depending upon how it goes. So I think we will get started. I'm assuming the keynote should be over, and if you can project my screen, please. Great. And so my name is Anand. I'm a cloud solution architect. I'm based out of I'm from the Microsoft APAC region. I'm based out of Malaysia for now. In my role, I get to advise customers and partners on what should be their approach, what should be their strategy to take their applications and put them on the cloud. So a lot of the questions that you asked fall under what I do, but unfortunately the session that I have chosen for today is around operational guidance, which means that as you plan your journey to the cloud, what are some of the things which you have to keep in mind? What are the gotchas when it comes in general from a cloud standpoint, and specifically when it comes to Azure is what I have. I have very few slides, and I kept it as an open chalk talk. So I have very high level topics that I will put it across. I will talk about my views and I'll open it up to you guys for you to interact. I don't have goodies for all of you in the room, but I have a few. So there's no particular good question or bad question based on which I will choose. I will just give them away, right? So what we'll touch upon is, in general, when you introduce cloud into an organization from an IT standpoint, what is the organizational impact? Azure operations in particular. So how many of you are from the operations background? How many of you handle IT operations? IT operations as in backup, monitoring, right? That's good. So good size of you. Then I'll talk about service delivery framework. Any of you offer IT as a service, either internally or externally? How many of you? Internally as good. So I have content which is aligned to that. I will quickly touch upon that and then come to your specific questions. I'll be around after the session during lunch. I'll be here so that you can walk up to me and we can have your conversation one-to-one. Great. So if you look at traditional IT in the enterprise, what is it that IT is delivering? So you have this service consumers, as you may call it, for whom we are delivering services, right? These are commodity services. You may call them virtualization, hardware, storage, some of the topics that you spoke about, data. Look at them as commodity layers. That's what we've been doing end of the day from an IT standpoint, right? For each of those service consumers, we've been delivering commodity layers at a very high level. If you were to ask what specifically are you doing, it would be around three things. Compliance at a very high level, right? Which operations is very much into on a day-to-day basis. Second thing is around reporting and billing. Billing, not probably exactly in the way you get a telephone bill at the end of a month, probably billing in the standpoint of forecasting, all your IT budgeting standpoint, you may have some kind of billing. And reporting, obviously. And finally, it is around management. So these are the three things that you typically deliver from an IT standpoint. Now, how is cloud changing that? Cloud will have its own services that gets introduced, be it private cloud, be it public cloud, be it a hybrid cloud. You're not talking about how you get in these blue boxes, which are the cloud offerings, combined with your on-premise offerings, and do all of those three things. Now, when you bring in cloud, is it only these three things, or how does it affect? So now you're talking about introducing an additional layer, which we call as a service brokerage. Now, because all of these three things, the red boxes is something which you own, you control, you manage end to end. When you bring in cloud, there are aspects of it which you manage depending upon what is it that you're consuming from the cloud, what model are you using, depending upon whether it is an IaaS service, platform as a service, or software as a service. There is little that you can have control of. But IT being IT, we still have to take that, offer it. Because your service consumers are looking at you and not the cloud service provider for the services that is being offered. When something goes wrong, do they call up like the vendor, the cloud service provider? No, it is IT who is managing, right? So from that standpoint, you'll be now looking at how do I broker, how do I act as a broker between the cloud service provider and my service consumer, right? So while in the previous model, traditional model, you were looking at economies of scale, economies of skills, Now you are more looking at also a service brokerage piece to be introduced into your organization. Now, what does that again boil down to? When you talk about the changes, the transformation from a traditional IT model to a cloud model, you're not talking about changing from owning IT assets. That's how you had it in your traditional world, to more towards consuming model. Why? Because in the cloud it is pay as you go. You spend, you use stuff, you pay for it, versus you own stuff and you're trying to figure out how do I use it, right? So now you're moving from an owning model to a consuming model. That changes a lot, right? From managing platforms, which is how IT used to operate. There's an ERP that needs to be evaluated. What is a platform that I need to build? What is the operating system? What is a database? And that X times the number of platforms, the number of applications that you would look at. Versus now you're looking at managing services. When you're looking at towards a cloud model, that is what happens in the cloud. When you're looking at either hybrid, public, private, in the new era of cloud, you're not looking at managing platforms. You're looking more at managing applications, managing services. And finally, expanding legacy platforms. Earlier it used to be about, I'm running version 3.0, I need to get to version 4.0. What do? I rebuild it, I add features, I relook at a platform, relook at an application. Versus now you're looking at modernizing your workload. How do I look at from a siloed application to a more agile application, more collaborative kind of application is what you're looking at from a cloud standpoint, right? So these are at a very high level. Like I said, these are the only slides that I had. Now questions. So the first question that I got was around subscription management. Bear with my handwriting. So let's talk about subscription. So how do you get started? How many of you have an Azure subscription till date, right? Yeah, you have it. Good. So first thing we should understand, how can you buy Azure? There are three ways in which primarily you can buy Azure. One is a pay-as-you-go model, which means that you don't pay anything upfront. End of the month, you get a bill. Good from a personal standpoint, very bad from an enterprise standpoint. Why? Because you never know. You are a broker, like I introduced, right? Somebody else is consuming. For all you know, he may overshoot. At the end of the month, you may get a bill which you would not have expected for, right? So from an IT standpoint, you have to be careful, you have to be prepared for those kind of scenarios. Earlier, everything was yours. You shut down your machine, you can do multiple, or you can say I don't have capacity. Cloud gives you elasticity, cloud gives you flexibility, all of that is good. From a cost standpoint, you'll have to be aware. So first is a pay-as-you-go model. It has got its own benefits. It has got its own things that you need to consider about. Second is open. Open as in you have a partner, you have someone with whom you have signed up an agreement. And based on that agreement, you go ahead and create a subscription. And finally, you have an enterprise agreement. So these are the three different models which you can. While open and enterprise agreement are monetary commit, which means that how does it happen in the traditional world? When you wanted to look at an application, you would go ahead and speak to the application vendor, the architects, the consultants, who would then tell you as an IT what is the sizing that is needed for this application. That's how you traditionally look at it. Then you talk about DR, then you talk about high availability, business continuity, add all of those aspects to it, and then come up with your final bill of materials, which means that for running this application, I need 16 cores, 256 GB RAM, 1 terabyte of storage. You put a price to it, you go ahead and procure, and then operations takes over. That's a traditional way. Look at how will it happen in the cloud way. In the cloud, if I were to take the same approach and do it on the cloud, you're not doing probably what cloud is best at. Cloud is best at doing burst, pay-as-you-use model. I know I had built this application keeping 5,000 people in mind. Doesn't mean that from day one I need 5,000 people, I need to size for 5,000 people. On-prem world, maybe yes, maybe not, I don't know. It doesn't make a difference because I anyway pay upfront. I might as well run it at capacity or do virtualization, do something to figure out how will I go and change it later. In the cloud, that's not the case. If you don't use it, you are paying for it still because it is running. So which means that in a in a cloud model, you will go ahead and do a sizing differently, you will go ahead and do your design differently, and based on that, you would go ahead and do a commit, monetary commit, saying that I think for this application I'm going to consume, let's say 100 rupees per month, and I go ahead and upfront sign an open agreement or an enterprise agreement with your Microsoft partner and Microsoft and say I'm going to use 100. So this is like your prepaid, and against that 100 rupees you start consuming services. The virtual machine is like 10 rupees. I'm just putting some numbers to it so that you understand. Somebody has storage, somebody has got data requirements. Against that 100, your bill will start getting reduced, right? So let me quickly take you through what that portal looks like for how. Do any of you have an enterprise agreement? Any enterprise agreement customers? You have an enterprise agreement. I understood, but your organization has got, or your customer has got an enterprise agreement customer. So this is how an enterprise agreement portal looks like, and it's a bit different in open agreement, or it is a bit different. So when you log into the portal, you get to see all the different accounts. So the first thing which you asked for was how do you manage accounts. So you need to understand how you would structure your subscription. One thing which you have to keep in mind whenever you plan for an Azure account, a subscription is the lowest level of cost aggregation. Because I'm keeping on repeating, when it comes to the cloud, it is the cost that most of us are worried about. On-prem, it is an upfront cost, so you are very much sure what is it that I'm going to spend for this year. When you are on the cloud, that is not the case. Cloud gives you the flexibility, but then it also gives you the uncertainty of what is it going to cost like, right? So if I were to put up things on the cloud, I need to monitor, I need to be able to report back based on who is using it. And what I'm saying is that when it comes to Azure, subscription is the lowest level. I can't, within a subscription, split down and give you an individual cost. Your question.
How do you manage the capex and all other stuff?
How do you manage the capex for what?
Projecting basically.
Projecting? So coming back to my initial discussion around how did you do it in a private cloud? How did I do? I said, okay, for this application, I need so much of compute, so much of storage, so much of networking, and I looked at the hardware costs. Now you look at the Azure cost in terms of compute, storage and networking to run that application. Keep in mind on Azure, it is all based on per unit, per hour, per month, whatever, right? So which means that if I had an application which I was running on my private cloud, and if I were to just take that and run it on my public cloud as it is, I would typically look at 744 hours, given that at 31 days and 24 hours, I will do my calculation accordingly, and I will project based on that. We make it easy for you in our public portal itself. I'm not too sure how many of you have seen this online portal. If you just go to azure.microsoft.com, we give you a calculator which will help you with estimating. I'm just going to azure.microsoft.com. If I go to pricing, you have individual pricing for each of those components, but then you also have a pricing calculator. When you click on the pricing calculator, you have split it across multiple, like I mentioned, depending upon what is it that you're trying to consume, whether it is an IaaS or platform as a service, you pick and choose the components. If it is virtual machines, I will go ahead and choose the virtual machine size. So you have 1 core, 1.5 GB RAM, 2 numbers of it, and immediately I get a price for it, right? Similarly for storage, for SQL Server, BizTalk Server, and that's how I get to my billing. This is how I would do my estimation, right? How did I do again? Based on my traditional model. If I were to take that same traditional model and put it to the cloud, this is how it works. Can you, as IT or as a procurement guy, go ahead and commit to business that this is all that I will consume? There are a lot of other factors to it. Are you the service consumer? No. For all you know, you provide it to a service consumer, he may say this is not enough. He'll say I'm adding more. Then it goes for a toss. So those are things which you'll have to keep in mind. Coming back to my discussion, so lowest level of cost aggregation is subscription. That is something which you'll have to keep in mind. So when you're planning, when you're doing costing, look at the structure that I have created, right? So typically you will have departments, under departments you will have projects, under projects they may have different type of environments that they need to create. Let's say I'm embarking as a business unit, as a department, a particular ERP project, for example. Now the ERP will say, I need a dev test first to test it out. Then I need to have an UAT environment. Then I go to pre-prod and prod, right? On your on-premises world, you would have logically, physically, virtually created all those environments. Now on the cloud also, you'll have to create those, obviously. On the on-premises world, you may look at a shared kind of infrastructure model to do like a pre-prod and prod. Logically, you'll have to think of all of that on the cloud. The reason why I'm talking about all of this is because at the end of the day, if somebody comes and asks you, can you tell me for the SAP dev test that you did, how much did you spend? Where will you go? You'll go to your portal and try to look at utilization, the bill that we send you. The bill, what will it tell you? It will tell you that you ran 100 virtual machines, and virtual machines are VM1, VM2, VM3. Now, how will you say VM1 was used for SAP dev test or VM1 was used for something else? You'll have to do that planning. That is why I'm saying, if you plan based on subscription, the way you would do it is, I would create a different subscription for SAP dev test. I'll create a different subscription for SAP prod, pre-prod, and so on. Coming back to your question, all this is good. I think you got it. But then what will happen when I want to move from like a pre-prod to prod, dev test to UAT? How about, because each subscription is like a boundary on its own, right? You will have administrators which you can set, you can do role-based access control, all of that is fine. How will I move a resource, for example, from subscription 1 to subscription 2? As long as all of this is in the cloud, it's in the same region, it is as easy as drag and drop. There's nothing that you have to worry about, right? At an operational level, it is around how do you build the operations around it. It is not that these have seamless integration. Subscription is a physical boundary, right? If I am as an administrator of both subscription 1 and subscription 2, you can just open up tools like this. So I have a tool. What are we doing? So this is a tool from our partner called Cloudberry. So I have two subscriptions here. One is a Bangalore subscription and another is another subscription. When I want to move from one subscription to other, I just do copy or move, and it just moves from one to other. So let me take back up, right? So think of this as subscription 1 and this is subscription 2. Moving is as simple as that. This is a third-party tool. If you were to do it, if you were to ask Microsoft to do it, I'll say PowerShell. I know how absolutely you love PowerShell, right? So that's why I'm showing you how as simple as this you can use. Wow, what is this? Yeah, sorry.
Is it possible through PowerShell?
It is possible. Absolutely possible.
I thought we have to raise a service request.
No. Very much possible. All possible. AZ copy also does the same thing. Yes.
This you are showing as if you have the admin credential for both the services.
That's right.
But in case if the subscription administration credential are not shared, is there any federated method?
No. Here all that I'm doing, if you notice carefully, I'm looking at two storage, Azure storage containers.
Belonging to same organization?
Belong to the same organization, for example. If it is that a partner is doing the development for me and when it moves to production, it has to be deployed in the customer's environment, I can again do this if you have the storage key, for example. So how do I do it? I'll just go and add a blob storage. I will say add a new account. I will go ahead and ask from the customer his storage account to which I need to transfer and the storage key. I can recycle the key once the operation is done, so that the partner does not have access to the production environment once the copy is complete. But yes, that is also possible. So you don't need to be like a service administrator to do this operation.
We don't need to even contact Microsoft for doing
nothing at all. So keep this in mind. Once you have a subscription, even if you call us, there is little that we can do. The only ticket that I raise is when you say, you know what, Microsoft, I created a subscription, I cannot access it. The primary subscription owner, if you lose your connectivity to Microsoft, is the only ticket that we get into. For all other operations, practically today we have a solution which you will yourself have control on your environment. Even if you raise a ticket, we will not be able to do anything. So initial days, 2 years back when we started IaaS, the first kind of tickets that we used to get. Now, for those of you who created a virtual machine in Azure, you know how easy it is or how complex it is. So for me, it was complex when I started first creating my virtual machine. Why? Because when you go through the steps, the wizard, it will say, create a machine, you give a name. It not only asked you for a complex password, it also asked you to have a complex username. It doesn't accept admin or administrator. A lot of times I created a virtual machine and I not only forgot my password, I forgot my username also. So the initial tickets that I used to get is, hey Microsoft, can you reset my account for me? I said, that's your virtual machine, I can't do anything. And you know how unhappy our customers were, because what would you do in your environment if you had a virtual machine on a similar scenario you had forgotten? You have tools which you use to get into the virtual machine and reset the password, right? I'm not mentioning about the tools, but you know what I'm talking about. You would expect Microsoft to do that for you in your virtual machine on Azure? Absolutely not, right? So, I don't know how many of you are aware about VM extensions that are there today. Aware? Right? So VM extensions today gives you the capability for doing 3 things. If you have forgotten your administrator password, if you want to reset, you want to reset your administrator password without getting into that, you can have a PowerShell console opened to your Azure subscription and reset your admin password. Second common request that we keep getting from our customers is around, can you give me console access? In your on-premises world, hardware, virtual machine, VMware, Hyper-V, all of them have console access, right? Which tells me that I can get to see what is happening. I can do admin access on Azure. How do we connect to virtual machines? RDP, right? So which means that for whatever reason, if RDP is blocked, you're like totally logged out. The only thing that we do from the admin console is to specify what is the public endpoint for RDP. And again, as a best practice, when you create a virtual machine, it dynamically takes a port, which you can go ahead and change it back to 3389 or whatever you choose, so that you get access. What happens if an administrator of the virtual machine, because you, I'm assuming an IT operation guy, create a virtual machine, hand it over to the team, and the team then takes it over. The team, as their security best practice guidance, the first thing that they do is turn off remote, thinking that I'll get console access. Or they have like an endpoint security tool that blocks RDP access, for example. Then you're totally logged out, right? So what do you do in those scenarios? There again, VM extension. We have a VM extension that can enable an RDP port or enable or turn off firewall for a specific port. So these are kind of operations that you can do on your own. So the point being, to your question, do you need to raise a support ticket for Microsoft for any of these operations? All these operations, you're totally in control, right? Coming back to subscription management, any questions around this?
Yes, so one question.
Third one is firewall. Firewall, RDP, and password administrator. Fourth one is fancy, like a BG info, which gives you the, when you log in, you get to see C drive. That's right. The desktop wallpaper changes so that you get, right? So those are the 4 extensions available. You have third-party extensions which are coming in. There are a lot of them who had, but these are the primary VM extensions. Now,
Good question. Is there any roadmap for console connect?
Is there any roadmap for console connect? Tell me a scenario. I'll tell you how that can be achieved. Is there any scenario? I mean, if you as an administrator get the satisfaction of looking at a virtual machine booting up, is it for that, or is it for some specific scenario?
Because WAP has it right now, so is there any
Scenario.
just to customers ask?
That's what. So
because other cloud service providers, their local code.
But again,
yeah. So if it
just for security concern, when Microsoft people have the access to put the admin and log in and then take access. Just
Microsoft people do not have.
meaning we raise a request for you, as you said, like for 3 reasons.
Did I say that? For all of these three reasons, I do not have. All of this is customers control. Microsoft, not even the topmost bosses in Microsoft, can touch any virtual machine, no matter how small or big that customer is. We don't touch the customer's data, neither do we allow anybody from outside, external vendors, government, law enforcement agencies to touch your customer's data. It is only the customer, right? So we do not allow that, is what is coming to. Don't
so
get me
one
wrong.
question.
Yeah.
Is there any way to set a cap on a subscription on the costing side?
Right. So depending on which model you go, right? Pay as you go, open an enterprise account. You cannot set a hard limit. You cannot set a hard limit. However, what you can set is a alert threshold notification, which means that I can say that if I'm going to spend more than 1,500 rupees, just start sending me mail. That is there. Billing alert and notification is the only thing which you can have today.
Which of these models?
In the open model. Enterprise agreement has got a much more flexible model where you can set thresholds, you can set notifications because it's like an enterprise model. Pay as you go does not have any alerts or thresholds that you can set. So billing alert is all that you have. Enterprise agreement has got because what happens in a pay as you go or pay as you go model is you upfront you set for a month, right? Now apart from all of this, you have these other benefits like a MSDN subscription, for example, is there. How many of you have an MSDN and you have a benefit? So have you, any of your MSDN users consumed more than your monthly allowed? You have, right? And you would have noticed that it gets disabled. So that is the only cap that I was coming to, right? On any of the purchased model, there's no like a hard limit which says that I'm going to. So if you don't pay up at the end of 30 days is when I will disable your, in a pay-as-you-go model. We have a billing cycle. Every month we send you a bill and we say pay up within so and so date. If you don't, then we disable the account.
Do we see the real-time billing daily or something like that?
In pay-as-you-go, open and enterprise, all of these three models, yes, we do have. We do have. In enterprise, in the EA, we can set up reports to be sent per subscription level at various billing levels. In open, I said the billing threshold. You can set up to 5 billing alerts per subscription in an open subscription. Yes.
What is the type of trial edition? Is Go, Open or EA?
Trial is the fourth different because that's a 90-day trial that you get, trial subscription.
So in this you will get the features of all EA?
See, these are the different ways in which you can go ahead and purchase from Microsoft and Azure subscription. Trial is a subscription that we give you which is capped at $200 and 30 days, 60 days? 30 days.
But the features of EA is there or not in that?
What features?
I mean, whatever enterprise level.
See, these are subscription models. If you're looking at product features, these are payment models. Thanks for correcting me. The features, if you're thinking virtual machines chahiye, mere ko IoT chahiye, database chahiye, all features which we offer on Azure is available on MSDN trial, everything, except for partner add-ons. Right? You in Azure have an Azure marketplace. Marketplace is not available in India, but any partner add-ons are not available. For example, in our catalog, you have an Oracle VM. If you want to spin off an Oracle VM in your MSDN subscription, a database VM, he'll say it is not possible. You'll have to turn off the spending cap by providing your credit card and all of that. Right? Apart from that, all Microsoft features are available on trial, on MSDN, on pay-as-you-go, open, EA. These are all ways in which you can procure, billing, all of that.
And if the subscription expires, how long Microsoft will wait? Is there any time?
30 days. After that, we say we don't guarantee your data will be there. That's right. We give you a limit of 30 days. If you want more than that, you'll have to send me a justification on why. I mean, you can't say my signatory is on leave or. Yeah. 30 days is the default time limit that we give before we take off all your data.
To cancel my subscription, how long will Microsoft keep the data?
Your data, till the time you cancel your subscription, is in your hands. You can
cancel it, I don't want Azure.
Right.
So how long will Microsoft keep it?
So after you cancel the subscription, 30 days you will have access to your data as well, using which you can delete your own data, after which it will be cleaned off. After which we will stop access to your subscription. We any which ways don't have access to your subscription, and the data will just go off.
So I have a question about that. You mentioned about the marketplace, and if I choose to have Oracle DB
Right.
as an image,
Yeah.
how licensing is managed? It's like between me and Oracle or me and Azure?
That's right.
Azure and Oracle.
Right. So for some of those applications, like for example Oracle and CentOS and SUSE, the licensing for those pay-as-you-go, the licensing for those components are built into Azure, right? So as in the pricing for that as well as the licensing agreement is part of the subscription itself.
So
Right.
Microsoft Azure owns that license.
No, Microsoft Azure won't own, you will own the license.
Okay.
You will own the license, customer will not own. Do you as a customer have to have two different contracts, one with Microsoft, one with license, one with Oracle? No, you don't. You can have a single contract, single billing model, single pricing structure. However, keep in mind, for these two models, like open and enterprise agreement model, what you're doing is you're doing an upfront commit. You're paying up Microsoft so that both you and me are not taken by surprise.
Okay.
You're going in and telling Microsoft, hey Microsoft, I think I'm going to use $100 worth of Azure subscription. Here's my $100. End of the month or as and when I start consuming, start reducing from that, right? Oracle licensing and third-party licensing won't get reduced from that $100. You'll have to keep that in mind. That is over and above. That $100 of pre-commit is only for Microsoft products.
So how do I pay for that?
That we will send you a separate bill after that.
Okay.
Right?
And that's also credit.
That's also credit. I mean, all of them are credit. So you start using it. It's just that you'll have to keep in mind, we will send you a different bill for that. We will tell that you had $100 that you had committed for, against which you used like $75. But hey, customer, you also used $2 worth of Oracle. For now, we have a promo that is running where we have Oracle and IBM licenses that we give bundled. So don't worry for it for now, for a year, but eventually the way it stands today is that it will be too different. We call it overage. And that applies to only those things which are there in the catalog. Now Azure Marketplace is totally different. Azure Marketplace, if you go, you see Citizen SQLer, F5, Barracuda, there are so many partners which are out there which you can go ahead and buy. All of that is outside of Microsoft subscription, which means that you'll have to have an agreement differently with them and maintain, manage, because we don't have Marketplace in India. Azure.
Two questions here. Why when Microsoft, or is there any plan for Microsoft Marketplace to be available?
Yes, there's a roadmap. I don't have the timelines.
Okay.
I don't have the timelines. Definitely we are expanding Marketplace availability.
What about other virtualization like Citrix? Will they be available?
Virtualization as in?
On like Citrix platforms.
Citrix, if you're referring to the desktop virtualization, the Zen desktop, they're all available as in they're ready. Citrix has already certified their Zen offerings on, not the virtualization platform,
But the Zen,
the Zen app, what, Zen desktop or Zen app, whatever they call it now, is certified already
in Azure.
on Azure. Who manages the licensing? You will have to manage the licensing directly from Citrix. You're entitled to take that license and run it on Azure.
And if a publisher audits me for licenses,
Yeah.
What kind of collaboration Microsoft Azure offers?
Your environment is in your control. You will provide your auditor access to your subscription so that your auditors can go ahead and do the audit. Microsoft auditors will audit customers' environment for any kind of licensing. You are responsible for the licenses that you own in your subscription.
But do they do any kind of collaboration during audit?
What do you mean by collaboration?
Like, for example, if you have a traditional data center or a private cloud, service provider generally helps you in
Right.
in providing the details.
Details about what?
Because some applications are like core based, processor based.
That's right. So in a private cloud or in a data center hosted, the only details that the provider gives is the host which is running, is how many cores and all of that, right? All of that information is there with you in your subscription. So you are setting it, right? It is not that you, for each and everything, come back to Azure. You as a customer are creating an environment where you're selecting the number of cores that is needed for this application to run, right? Whereby you have that information. So Microsoft does not have that information.
One question for most of the companies who would be looking at it as a non-IT company. So IT is not a main business,
right?
And they choose to have a partner who do a kind of administration. Service management, they keep it with them, but administration of the service,
right,
like patching, antivirus,
right.
IaaS, and everything.
That's right.
Is there any kind of service offered by Microsoft which does a 24/7 for monitoring, patching, antivirus?
Yes, yes.
And it's integrated to the services?
That's right. So your patching, monitoring, you can have it in two different ways. One is a traditional way. You follow the on-premises model of monitoring, patching your environment.
Or ask Microsoft to do that on my IaaS.
When you say Microsoft to do that, Microsoft offers a service called Operational Insights, which lets you do that. So Operational Insights is like monitoring on the cloud, which gives you a dashboard. You just go ahead and configure what is it that you want to monitor your applications for, right? So I can choose an application, an environment. Operational dashboard gives me all of that insights. Are my servers patched? Are it missing any critical vulnerable updates? Do you have like more administrators on a server? Is it up? Is it down? What is the usage? Ship me alerts or log monitoring. This is monitoring as a service. Is Microsoft doing it? We are offering you a service. We will charge you for that. That's it. You just go ahead and pay me for monitoring. This is something which customer owns. You will own. In your Azure subscription, you'll have to go ahead and turn it on and tell Microsoft Operational Insights which are the servers you want to monitor. You want to monitor the on-prem servers? I can do that. You can monitor on the cloud servers, all of that.
It's a multi-tenant environment, right? It's
Yeah.
a multi-tenant environment. If I, being one of the customers who are lazy and don't want to patch servers all the time,
Yeah.
and I get an infection or some compromise, how it will impact another tenant of yours on
How will it affect? I mean, these are all, each tenant is like a boundary on its own. It won't affect. It's a different side. It's a logically isolated unit. So if I am hosting a virtual machine on Azure and that is infected, will he get infected? No.
This service is part of EA or it should be separately charged?
Which one?
This monitoring service.
It's part of Azure. Keep in mind, Open, EA and Pay-As-You-Go are the different models to consume Azure. All features in Azure are available in all three models of purchase. That's a procurement model. This is the feature of Azure, right? So you go ahead and right now, Operational Insight is in preview. When it goes live, it will be a chargeable model. It will be charged based on number of servers and the number of data that they are sending across to Operational Insight.
They can purchase this and then charge back to the customer, or?
Consider this as an SI dashboard. So if you notice, when I logged in, it gave me two accounts and I clicked on one account and chose. Think of that as customer 1, customer 2, customer 3. I'm an SI. I have subscribed to Operational Insights. I am paying Microsoft based on the monitoring that I do. Right? That is the bill that I get. I look at that bill, put my markup, charge my customer. Yeah, it is possible.
I can go only with this and without any licensing model, I can purchase only this
Yes.
to do the operation activity of the customer.
That's right. So you will have to have an agent deployed on the customer's environment, the servers which you want to monitor. It can be physical, it can be virtual, it can be cloud, but as long as that guy has got connectivity to Azure, you're good to go.
Fully functional?
It's in preview.
Adding to the
Can we do? Install the patch would be a combination of what is the controlling. So if you have group policies, Active Directory, right, settings, obviously you can't override all of that. It will show me that so many patches are missing. From there, you get to choose how it should be configured. Do you want the patches to be pushed using the existing patching mechanism which is already there? Like, this is not a replacement for your SUS or Windows Update. You still need to have those environments, for example, patching. This also has the client security part of it, which means antivirus updates and all, right? If you have a such server, I can say go ahead and push patching based on that.
So this can integrate with my existing.
This can integrate with your existing patching mechanism to. Yeah.
And as a subscriber, can I select an antivirus, or is it like fixed one?
No, so this comes along with Microsoft client security, but if you have your own, let's say you want to choose a Symantec or a McAfee or a Trend Micro, all of them have their own cloud offerings. That's not integrated with that, and they have their own dashboard, just like always it was in on-prem, the cloud also. They also have a cloud versus an IaaS model which you'll have to go and subscribe. It won't get integrated into this.
Can you go back to...
Sorry, yeah.
On-premise license to Azure?
Depends upon what application are you migrating. So on Azure, from a Microsoft standpoint, you cannot bring your Windows Server licenses to Azure. Whenever you create an instance, the Windows Server instance is part of the subscription that you create. So you cannot say, I have a Windows Server standard on-prem, can I take it? No, you can't, right? All other application licenses, if you're covered under an agreement with software assurance, you can transfer it across to SQL, SharePoint, System Center.
If I recur PCI DSS complaint, is Azure provide that to me, or I have to depend upon a third party for that?
So Azure will provide you with the PCI compliance for the Azure infrastructure.
I will get the certificate that
And when you say I'll get a certificate, it is already out there. So if you go to Microsoft, azure.microsoft.com, go to Trust Center, go to Compliance, all of the compliance certificates that we are complied with.
If we are using database in the shared environment, is it comes under the certification?
That's right. So we will tell you that the Azure database, which is there in a shared environment, is covered under PCI compliance. However, when you set up your environment, when you set up your cloud infrastructure, that application has to be on your own.
Is there any way to hold the subscription? Like for the next 4 months, I may not use it, or Microsoft straight away will drop it free. Like before, we just call up Microsoft or send a mail that for the next 3 months, I don't want to work on my subscription, but you hold it by paying some initial amounts or something like that.
When you don't use anything, you don't pay anything. The data is yours. I mean, that's why, as long as you don't go ahead and cancel the subscription, your subscription is on. We will send you a bill every month, that bill dollars in it. So you pay $0 and you hold your subscription. But then you will have something. You will have storage, right? Are you going to delete all your data? No, right? As long as you're going to retain your data, that bill will have some dollar value to it.
So can I shut it down on Friday evening and start back?
Oh, absolutely.
And no charges?
No charges. We charge you by minute for the virtual machine, which means that you run a virtual machine for 15 minutes, I'll send you a bill for 15 minutes, not round it off to the next hour. Right, so that's... Storage will be charged because, yeah. And keep in mind, storage is charged as you consume, which means that you create a 1 terabyte disk, but you store only 100 GB of data in it, I'll charge you only for 100 GB, right? Not for 1 terabyte. Like thin provisioning. We already do thin provisioning, it is data stored per actual consumed. And we average it out for a day, which means that you started the day with 0 GB, at the end of the day you had 100 GB, we will take 0 plus 100 by 24 hours and that's the charge that we average.
One more question adding to that licenses itself. Suppose the customer is already having the Oracle of whatever DB he is using,
right.
That license is already having.
Okay.
But he wants his VM to be on the cloud. So can we use those licenses over the virtual VM?
So your question is Oracle. So Oracle will have to clarify that. That's why I said Microsoft licenses we will be able to. Oracle licenses, mobility has to come from Oracle, right? The respective vendor has to. So if you're referring to the Oracle built-in license in a virtual machine, right? That is a virtual machine template that you spin off, which already will have a billing model with Oracle in it. You cannot bring your on-prem licenses for that billing. If you want to use the on-prem licenses, Oracle goes ahead and says, you want to take your license which is running on-prem, run it on Azure. They give you an agreement saying that you can do that. In that case, what you'll have to do, you'll have to spin off a blank VM, as in a Windows VM only, set up Oracle. At that time, you import your Oracle licenses. Do not go ahead and provision the Oracle template from Azure. Yeah, because the minute you spin off an Oracle VM template, your bill is going to include the Oracle licenses as part of it.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Please explain me Azure account and service account and the service subscription.
Right.
How it is created.
Okay. How it is created? So the very first time you sign up for an Azure subscription, you get what we call as an Azure account. Azure.
And the Azure account can access MA portal, or only service account can access a MA portal. And what are co-administrator Azure?
Right. So this is your Azure subscription management, right? So the very first time you will use a Microsoft account as in a live ID or your ID to go ahead and sign in. The very first time you sign in is where you go ahead and buy and add your subscription. Then you do an account. Then you do a subscription administrator. That administrator is the only guy by default, and those two admins can be different. Subscription administrator can be different from an account administrator. Subscription administrator will be responsible for this, for adding subscriptions, for choosing which features does he want to use. For example, we have preview features, right? So this is my subscription management portal. Subscription management portal, and I have subscription. I will go ahead and say add a subscription, and that is where it asks me what kind of subscription. Is it an MSDN subscription, pay as you go, open, or enterprise?
This is the main account.
This is the main account, right? So you create a subscription. Once you create a subscription, you add an subscription administrator. Now this guy who logged into your administrator for this portal will not or need not necessarily have admin rights into this. This is your Azure management portal. Azure management portal is typically in an enterprise and a technical guy who will be creating virtual machine and all. Think of the account administration portal as your procurement head. Easy technically is like a procurement guy. He just manages billing, procurement. He will have account. So somebody will go up to him and say, can you create I'm starting a new project, can you create a subscription for me? He logs in using his account, creates a new subscription, adds you as a co-administrator to that, so that when you log in, you will be able to get. So that's the difference between account administrator and subscription administrator.
Account administrator cannot access MA portal, but
it is not that cannot, it depends upon how you set it.
Okay.
Right? You have an account administrator and you have a subscription administrator. Okay. As long as you create two different IDs for that, right? Because typically what I've seen is that the same ID which I use for creating an account, I go ahead and create a subscription. Then which means that I have everything. I necessarily don't do that. You do segregation of duties just like the way you do in on-prem. In the cloud also you're expected to do that. Right? And you will also do co-administrators in the Azure management portal are administrators, full administrators to the management portal, which means that they can create everything. They can create, manage, delete resources.
Only subscription, right?
Not subscription. You're in a subscription. That's right. That's right.
Is it role based?
Today we have 3 roles: reader, contributor, operator. And there are roles which are there for specific action, like a virtual machine owner, network owner, and stuff like that. But there is no option today to have like a custom role created. That is in the roadmap. You don't have like a UI which will say user 1 can start and stop virtual machine but not delete. आज के दिन में नहीं है. There are predefined like a network administrator, virtual machine administrator, and all of that. And that's only available in the new portal. The preview portal is not available in the previous portal. So coming back to co-administrator, so you go ahead and click on the administrators tab, and you look at all of these, right?
This is within the subscription.
This I have logged in, and I have multiple. If I have multiple subscriptions. So first thing which you'll notice is that you will have a directory associated to a subscription, right? By default, if you go ahead and sign up a Azure subscription, depending upon what is your ID that you're using to sign up, I will create a default directory, right? So unless it is like a live or outlook.com, there will be no directories. What we are expecting you is use that directory to create additional users and provide those users with access to your subscription. The challenge which I see in most of the enterprises, if I use Hotmail account, live account, is that as an organization I don't have control. Tomorrow if you come to me as an IT and say, I forgot my live password, can you reset for me? Where do I have IT capabilities to reset? So always we ask you to create a directory. Think of this as an Active Directory that you create on the cloud. It is not like VM and DC Promo and not that. It's a free thing which is there in your subscription. Go to Active Directory, say create a new directory, create a user. When you do that, you have total control on your directory. You can go and reset your password, go and set role-based access control and do all of that stuff. Then add that user to a subscription. Right?
So we can make a group and other things also in this Active Directory?
And do what?
For management, for managing the users actually, if it is in account department, in
yes.
departments, or maybe in other sites and other things. So can I?
Yeah.
Sir, I think so in Azure Active Directory, we don't have options for creating OUs or group policies.
OUs and group policies are not there. Groups are there. Groups are there. OUs and group policies are not there. Yeah. No. So you're not joining a machine to the domain. This is an Active Directory just for subscription management, not for joining a machine to the domain, right?
This allow also to join a machine.
It does not. Yeah.
Can I have a AD at a account level so that all my subscription shares those AD users or groups?
Yes, you can have the same AD added to multiple subscriptions. You can, right? So that for each subscription, I don't have to create a separate AD. You can.
Oracle Inside, this question is over. I want to know more about Oracle Inside.
Oracle Inside?
Not Oracle Inside.
Operational Inside.
Operational Inside.
That's right.
So do you provide kind of troubleshooting help and that kind of stuff also?
What exactly?
If there's a problem with the IaaS machine, IaaS machine, and
What is the problem?
IaaS is stopping.
IaaS inside of your subscription machine is stopping.
So I want
You are responsible. I won't.
That's what I'm saying. Look, for example, I come from a non-IT company where IT is not the core. I try to outsource my technology.
Oh, that was always there, right? Even before we moved to the cloud, we have our own support organization. We have a paid support. Yeah, same applies. Nothing is different for Azure.
Excuse me, I think your answer is application insight. You go to the application.
No, that is different. IaaS. Managed services.
Managed services on Azure.
Because application totally horizontal managed.
Right. So we provide services. We provide services for all of those support. We have professional support options available. These are paid supports. That we have free support, which are mainly for subscription management alone. For all technical support, there are paid options available.
But
Premier.
that's what we call. What I'm asking is a managed services. Like you got a traditional data center. You also subscribe.
No, we don't. We don't
That's
provide.
what I'm looking for. If there is anybody who can help us.
So a partner can
that's
provide.
That's the stopping point for us as an organization.
Sure.
To even think about us.
Oh yeah, there are so many SIs and there are partners who do that for a living. I mean, they have a managed service offering. You go to them, they are tier 1 support vendors. I have just 2 minutes, so I have a bunch of giveaways for the guys who asked the most questions. So one for you, one for you, and one for that lady over there. Can just pass it on to her. Thank you. So I have just 1 minute, so I'm not taking any more questions. I'm around after this session as well, so I'll be around here somewhere. So catch me. I'll be more than happy to take your questions. Right? Thank you, and hope you enjoyed the session.